The real tragedy of the narcissist isn't arrogance, it's starvation. Starvation for a kind of love they were never taught to recognize, let alone receive. You think narcissists love themselves. You think they wake up each morning wrapped in their own glory, admiring their own reflection. But the truth is far stranger and far sadder. Today we step inside the kingdom they built out of broken mirrors and borrowed applause, where every throne hides a wound and every smile masks a scream. Carl Jung once said, "The persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself and others think one is." The narcissist doesn't simply wear a mask. Over time, the mask consumes the face beneath it, and what remains isn't confidence. It's a hollow performance, repeated so often that even the performer forgets it's a play. Beneath that performance, a throne gleams under artificial light, but it is not the narcissist who sits there. It is the tyrant king. The tyrant king doesn't rule with wisdom or courage. He rules through fear, through fragile dominance, through desperate demands for loyalty. He needs your applause, not because he believes he deserves it, but because without it, he fears he will vow it. Every grandiose boast, every sudden withdrawal, every cutting remark, these are not signs of power. They are signs of panic. But the tyrant king is not the origin of the story. He is only the bodyguard. The true beginning lies further back, hidden behind the heavy curtains of memory. There, crouching unseen, is the child. A child who was loved conditionally, if at all. A child who learned that to reveal weakness was to risk annihilation. A child who made a devastating trade, authenticity for survival. Maybe you've met someone like this. Someone whose brilliance dazzles, but whose warmth never quite touches you. Someone whose strength is a little too brittle, whose victories taste a little too hollow. Or maybe in quieter moments you've caught a glimpse of it in yourself, the small betrayals of your real self, the subtle exchanges of truth for approval. The narcissist's mask was not born from vanity, it was born from hunger, a hunger so old it no longer even remembers what it's reaching for. Every time the king demands loyalty, every time the magician spins another story, every time the mask demands another sacrifice, it is not to celebrate strength, it is to protect a child who still believes that if he is not admired, he will be abandoned. And so, the show goes on, not because they are proud, but because they are terrified. There's a moment every narcissist fears, though most would never name it. The moment when the mirror no longer flatters them. The moment when the story they have spun begins to unravel, thread by trembling thread. At first it feels like enchantment. They draw you in with magnetism so vivid it feels almost supernatural. They mirror your dreams, your fears, your hunger to be seen. Their attention feels like oxygen, their praise feels like prophecy. But the brighter the light, the deeper the shadow it casts. Behind the dazzling exterior moves another figure, the shadow magician. The shadow magician doesn't control by force, he controls by distortion, by bending your reality until you no longer trust the ground beneath your feet. At first, their insights seem profound, their stories shimmer with meaning, their vulnerability feels rare, precious, sincere. But over time, doubt creeps in like a slow poison. You apologize for things you didn't do. You question truths you once stood on without hesitation. You wonder if you are the one losing your grip. By then, the spell has already been cast. The shadow magician's power is subtle and devastating. He does not just lie to you, he invites you to lie to yourself. Maybe you've worked under a leader like this, a person who redefined betrayal as loyalty, who spun weakness into wisdom. Maybe you've loved someone like this, a partner whose tenderness turned sharp the moment you asked for something real. Maybe you've recognized it in yourself, the temptation to craft the narrative a little too carefully, to hide the vulnerable truths behind a more beautiful story. The shadow magician weaves these illusions not out of malice, but out of terror. Terror that if the truth were ever fully seen, it would reveal not just imperfection, but emptiness, that, without the illusion, there would be nothing left at all. And so the stories get tighter, the mirrors get more distorted, the web thickens until even the magician forgets where the truth once lived. But there is one thing that no amount of spinning can erase, no amount of applause can drown out, no amount of charm can silence. The mirror, it waits, patient, still, unimpressed by stories, unafraid of illusions. And when the day comes, and it always comes, when the last story falters, when the last applause fades and the last admirer walks away, the mirror will still be there, and it will tell the truth, not out of cruelty, but because that, in the end, is what sets the soul free. Some silences heal, others reveal how much was never planted at all. For the narcissist, silence is not rest. It is danger. It is the collapse of a stage that must always be lit, always be admired, always be applauded. Without the noise, without the audience, something unbearable surfaces. The absence of the lover, the absence of the caregiver, the parts of the human soul that make love more than transaction, that make empathy more than strategy. In the narcissist, these archetypes lie dormant, buried beneath years of survival, masquerading as connection. They can imitate care with extraordinary precision. They can offer gestures that for a moment almost feel real. But when true intimacy demands their presence, when real, messy, vulnerable love asks them to step off the stage and sit in the discomfort of another's world, they freeze, or they run, or they turn cold, not because they do not want to love, but because they were never taught how to survive it. Their world is constructed entirely of reflections. You are loved when you admire. You are needed when you affirm. You are seen only when you serve the image they must maintain. Ask for something deeper, real empathy, real reciprocity, and you threaten to expose the empty throne they desperately protect, and so they retreat. Not because your need is wrong, but because their inner world has no bridge to meet it. Maybe you have loved someone like this, someone who made grand promises, built perfect futures in your mind only to vanish when you needed them to stay. Maybe you have stood in a garden like this, lush with imitation, stunning in appearance, yet eerily hollow the moment you tried to breathe its air. Or maybe, in your own quiet hours, you felt the fear of being asked for a tenderness you had long ago boarded up and buried. The narcissist does not reject love because they are proud. They reject it because real love demands presence, and presence demands the abandonment of the mask. And the mask is the only thing they believe keeps them alive. They are starving for connection, starving for the very thing they are too wounded to hold. It is the saddest kind of hunger, one that devours itself, because the more they crave love, the more they sabotage it. The more they yearn for intimacy, the more they drive it away. The more they need to be seen, the more violently they conceal themselves. And so the garden remains, a flawless museum of plastic roses, beautiful from a distance, dead in your hands. The tragedy is not that they don't feel love. The tragedy is that they cannot let themselves be loved, because to be loved, you must first be seen, and to be seen, you must first be real. There's a question every narcissist spends their life running from. What if the mask falls and no one loves what's underneath? The mirror waits with unbearable patience. It does not flatter, it does not bargain, it simply reflects, and in that reflection something shatters, not because the image is grotesque, but because it is real, because it reveals not the tyrant, not the magician, not the grand performer, but the child who was taught that being ordinary meant being invisible, the child who learned that showing fear meant earning shame, the child who came to believe that the only safe way to exist was to become who others needed them to be and to erase who they truly were. The tyrant king is a fortress. The shadow magician is a labyrinth, but at the center, there is no monster. There is only an abandoned boy, barefoot among broken glass, trying to piece together an identity from the shards. Maybe you've caught glimpses of this moment in someone else, or maybe in yourself. That split second where the performance falters and for a heartbeat something achingly human flickers through. A look of lostness, a flash of terror, a tremble too quick to catch unless you're looking for it. The narcissist does not fear losing power, they fear losing the illusion that they were ever lovable without it. And so they cling to the story. They polish the crown. They sharpen the illusions. They silence the child inside with more noise, more conquest, more applause. But no amount of performance can heal a wound that demands presence. No amount of adoration can fill a void that was shaped not by lack of attention, but by the absence of unconditional love. And the longer they run, the more brittle the mask becomes. Until one day, whether through heartbreak, collapse, or simply the slow erosion of time, the mirror cannot be avoided, and what looks back at them is not the invincible figure they worked so hard to create. It is the small, terrified face they tried so desperately to forget. The child still waiting to be chosen, still waiting to be enough, still waiting for someone to say, "You are loved," even without the crown, even without the mask, even in your trembling, messy, unguarded humanity. You are loved. And maybe, just maybe, if the narcissist can find the courage to face that reflection without turning away, the healing can begin. Not with grand declarations, not with dazzling reinventions, but with a simple, shattering acceptance that the love they spent their life chasing was never outside the mirror. It was waiting inside it all along. From a distance, the narcissist seems invincible. Their charm seems effortless. Their confidence seems unshakable. Their life appears stitched together by endless victories. But the closer you come, the more you see it. The cracks beneath the surface, the tremors beneath the smile, the quiet, desperate erosion at the foundation of it all. Because every stage they build is laid upon sand, every performance, every triumph, every dazzling success story, built not to celebrate life, but to outrun an invisible collapse. They do not chase admiration because they believe they deserve it. They chase it because without it, their world begins to dissolve, and what lies beneath terrifies them. In the narcissist's heart, applause is not pleasure. It's oxygen. Without it, suffocation begins. Without it, the old terror arises, the terror of being unseen, unloved, forgotten, so they perform. Again and again and again, each success is a sandbag thrown against a rising flood, each conquest a frantic patch over a widening hole, each relationship a desperate bid to anchor a self they cannot fully inhabit. Maybe you've worked beside someone like this. Their energy intoxicating when you cheer them on, their coldness chilling when you step out of script. Maybe you've loved someone like this, feeling like the center of their universe one moment, discarded as irrelevant the next. Or maybe in the still corners of your own story, you felt the pull to perform, to polish, to prove your worth when silence felt unbearable. But no matter how grand the performance becomes, no matter how devoted the audience, no matter how many crowns are gathered and thrones erected, the stage always shifts, because it was never built on truth. It was built on survival. It was built on sand. And when cracks appear, when a career falters, when love demands more than illusion, when the mask slips even for a moment, the whole edifice trembles. And what is left is not the king, not the magician, not the garden of applause they spent their life tending. What remains is the one thing they feared to face, the child beneath the stage, barefoot and bewildered, still believing that without a script, without an audience, without a mask, they are nothing. The tragedy is not that they built the stage. The tragedy is that they forgot they were never meant to live on it. They were meant to live beyond it, beyond the applause, beyond the illusion, beyond the fear. But fear, when unspoken, becomes a prison with no visible walls, and the longer they perform, the more they believe the prison is all there is. What if one day the running stopped? What if the stage lights flickered and died? The applause faded into silence, the mirrors shattered one by one, and in the ruins, there was no more script to follow, no more audience to impress, no more crown to defend. Just the stillness, just the truth. And what if in that unbearable stillness they finally looked, truly looked, and saw not the tyrant, not the magician, not the illusion, but the child who never needed the crown. The child who was worthy before the world convinced them otherwise. Carl Jung wrote that healing is not in becoming better masks, but in the courageous integration of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we were taught to fear, to despise, to exile. For the narcissist, that path is not paved with accolades. It is paved with grief, the grief of a life spent outrunning the very parts that could have made them whole. It means mourning the years traded for admiration. It means grieving the love they could not hold because they feared it would destroy them. It means sitting with the terror they spent decades masking with crowns and performances, and then quietly, without fanfare. It means beginning again, not as the king, not as the magician, not as the carefully crafted persona, but as something older than any role, any script, any throne, as the self. The one they abandoned, the one they feared was too broken to save, the the one that against all odds waited. Maybe you've stood at that crossroads yourself. Maybe you have felt the mask cracking in your hands. Maybe you have wondered if anything real could survive after the performance ended. And here is the truth. It can, it does. It waits beyond the crown, beyond the mirrors, beyond the applause. There is a garden waiting to be grown, a life waiting to be lived, a love waiting to be remembered. It will not adore you for your victories. It will not worship you for your brilliance. It will not beg you to stay. It will simply stand there, quiet, patient, unbearably real, waiting for you to step forward, waiting for you to come home, because you were never the crown, you were never the applause, you were never the mask, you were always the garden, and you were always enough.